All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Professor Peter Mansoor, live from Columbus, Ohio. He is a retired U.S. Army colonel and a senior fellow at the Mershon Center for International Security Studies. So thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Professor, the hostilities have continued ever since the ceasefire was announced. There may have been a change in frequency. Do you feel this will eventually jeopardize the ceasefire? Because at this point, we've seen enough breaches of the truce already.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is Israel is trying to enforce the ceasefire on its own, when that's not the mechanism that was established under the agreement. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu believes that Israel needs to prevent the Hezbollah operatives from moving south of the Litani River. And if they see violations, then they're using their Air Force to strike them instead of going through the United Nations and the Lebanese army, as was agreed upon. But look, these are low-level violations, and I think that in the end, the ceasefire will hold, mainly because it's not in Hezbollah's interest to reignite hostilities. It's taken a huge hit with its leadership severely damaged and attrited. And in the end, it's up to Hezbollah to abide by the terms of the ceasefire to get out of this situation that it finds itself in.
Professor, you mentioned low-level violations, but all it takes is a slight escalation in a matter which is like a bag full of sparks. And how do you envision this going forward? Because if it is not enforced from both sides, I mean, the terms of the truce are not abided by both sides. It's just a matter of time. Do you see it that way? Right,
but in the end, Hezbollah can't continue the conflict and survive. And so in the end, it's going to have to give in and abide by the terms of the ceasefire, and that will stop the Israeli attacks. And then the UN peacekeepers and the Lebanese army will have a chance at actually establishing a cordon there in southern Lebanon. So I think there may be violations in the days to come, but I really see in the long term this armistice holding.
Right, Professor. That being said, do you feel the major escalations that we're seeing in Syria can have any sort of a bearing on this front as well? Because we know that's when things started to go south there, around the same time that the ceasefire was announced between Israel and Hezbollah.
And just to add to what Haim is saying, these kind of escalations we've not seen in Syria since almost 8 years. It's suddenly happened, and around the same time. Do you see any kind of parallel there, as Haim is asking?
Yeah, there is a connection there, but it's not exactly clear what the connection is. So there are lots of reports that HTS wanted to conduct this attack 6 weeks ago, and that Turkey told them not to. And it was only recently that Turkey greenlit the offensive. And so I think the fact that it's at the same time as the ceasefire in Lebanon is more coincidence than anything else. But there is a major impact, and that is that the Hezbollah operatives are not there in Syria to defend Bashar al-Assad's regime. And so you had a very successful offensive that retook the second largest city in Syria in a matter of days. And now those fighters are moving south towards Homs and, who knows, maybe eventually Damascus. So the fact that Hezbollah is tied up in Lebanon has really prevented it from supporting Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian army.
Professor Peter Mansoor, thank you so much for joining us here on World DNA. Pleasure speaking with you. There'll be lots more to discuss as tensions only seem to be escalating in the West Asian region, but hoping there is peace at the earliest. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Absolutely. My pleasure.